Hello, everyone. Welcome to Camera Club of Richmond Spotlights. I am Karen Davis, and I'm the Publications Director for the Camera Club of Richmond. And we are very excited to do our next spotlight tonight with one of our newer members, Francis Thompson. Tell you a little bit about Francis, and then we are going to launch into our spotlight interview. Francis is the Art Program Manager at JLL. Over the past 16 years, he's managed a team responsible for maintaining and expanding a contemporary corporate art collection installed within office buildings throughout North America. During the early part of his role with the collection, he led the curatorial development of its rotating exhibition program, which has grown to approximately 55 shows a year and now includes an array of virtual programming. On display within the corporate offices or published on the client intranet, these art experiences reflect diversity and culture, which are developed through collaboration with nonprofit art organizations, local museums, university art departments, and corporate employees. Francis has worked as Assistant Gallery Director for the Ellipse Art Center in Arlington, Virginia, the Assistant Coordinator for the Mountain Lake Workshops with Director-Producer Ray Cass. He's office manager for the Cunningham Dance Foundation and as gallery coordinator for the Virginia Tech Armory Gallery. A native of Virginia, he holds a Master of Fine Arts in Arts Administration and a Bachelor of Arts in Studio Art with a concentration in painting and drawing from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University in Blacksburg, Virginia. Francis regularly contributes to the local community through volunteering in these select active positions: Child Savers Art Collection Committee member, Longwood Center for the Arts Advisory Board member, Virginia Tech School of the Visual Arts Advancement Council, Chief for Phi Gamma Delta Financial Secretary for Knights of Columbus, and advisor to public art organizations, formerly vice chair of the City of Richmond Public Art Commission. So that should give you a little bit of a background on Francis. And he's had a couple of juried shows that he has curated recently. So first of all, let me congratulate you, Francis, on being selected to jury the recent All Photography exhibition at FCC Frederick Gallery in February of this year, and the juried All Media Show exhibition at Crossroads Art Center last November, and the Francis Thompson Selects exhibition at the Atlanta Photography Group. So you have been quite busy. But before we talk about everything that you've been doing, can you just maybe tell us a little bit something about you?
Sure. Thanks, Karen. And I really am excited to be able to speak with the group here. I've really enjoyed being a part of Camera Club of Richmond. I think it's been 2 or 3 years now. We've been so kind of busy. And of course, through the pandemic, it's hard to remember how much time has gone by. But I recall that Bob Pappas had told me about the group. He had exhibited some of his work and some of the photographers in the group through the exhibitions that I do for my work. And I was really excited to come in and learn, sit in the sessions. So I've really enjoyed that. So I guess what I'll add to what you mentioned is I'm a photographer in learning. I never had formal training or courses in my studio work as an undergraduate or graduate. And I wish I did. We just didn't, the university I was at didn't provide those classes. So I've been very curious about photography. My father was a photographer, so I've inherited some of his cameras, and it's kind of opened up my interest in photography in particular.
Awesome. And, you know, we're all photographers in learning, I think, no matter how many years you've been doing it, you're always learning. And when do you think you first picked up a camera? I mean, you've got all the art in your background, but how about photography? When did you start?
That's kind of hard. I remember when I was a kid, I got this little point and shoot with the flash, and then a strip of flash. Then you could, and the number of times so that was my first. My father gave me that and was trying to give me some pointers for photography, and maybe that's where it kind of started. From there, I was really interested in painting and drawing, but then getting back into photography, I think it was the work that I do now. working for a corporate art collection, putting together exhibitions, and then just meeting a lot of photographers, seeing the work and seeing how passionate they were, and just getting a better understanding of what photography does. It captures a point in time, it captures something that's really personal or something that is very ambitious for in terms of a project. So I've seen like many forms of different types of photography, and it could be very, very experimental, and part of mixed media too. I've seen photography as part of sculpture and painting, and I just feel like the other mediums can't really speak to or do what photography does, and that's what interests me.
Exactly. Now, where do you find your inspiration, either for your photography or for your art?
I'm going to stick with photography because I can talk a lot about things, but I'll mention an artist, Dawood Bey. I was in Chicago for an art fair expo. It happens every year, and I wasn't that familiar with this photographer's work, but they were showcasing a series of black and whites, and it was a project where he was documenting Underground Railroad and was trying to depict how somebody would traverse at night and pass by these different stopping points in a way, like a house, or they have to go through a field. And he tried to capture, in his words, and from what I heard in his talk, the ominous feeling of having to go by these locations, what's going to happen, and having to live through that. They're really just powerful, mysterious, and they gave me this just sense of, they just captured me. And he was so passionate the way he talked about the work at the art fair. I had to see them in person. I went to the booth, and then since then I've sort of been following along, like what this series of work is and what other work they have done as well. So that really inspires me. I kind of see other artists' work and really get drawn into it. So fine art is part of my profession, but then at the same time, I'm also very much a avid museum goer, gallery goer, and look at shows. I never get tired of it. So that really drives me.
And how wonderful that you are able to blend your interest with your vocation. I think that's really awesome that you've been able to put that into play. And so you mentioned JLL. What is your role there with the company?
Yeah, the work that I do is corporate art collection management. So for our client, they have close to 8,000 pieces in the collection, and they're installed in their offices across the United States, Canada. So for the past 16 years, I've been supporting this collection, and it's everything from managing the team to managing the database, the collection, programming, putting together artist talks, exhibitions, and other associate engagement type of programming. A lot of it's connected to diversity and inclusion. As of late, we've done that over the years, but I think we've really focused a lot more on that to be part of the conversation in all of the diversity and inclusion sort of celebration, et cetera.
Right. And we mentioned earlier that your role reaches out into the community, and many of our members probably don't realize this, but you've been instrumental in developing a partnership between one of your clients with JLL and the Camera Club of Richmond. Tell us how that came about.
I think that was in conversation also with Bob Pappas and some of the group. So I recall going to some of the initial meetings, and then the pandemic took place. We needed to find out how we could do programming, keep the associates of this client engaged while they're working from home, but then still have an art element. Photography is by far the most popular medium. Like the associates that are always interested in photography, and there's varying levels that they participate in or they just enjoy it. So the idea came up that perhaps there's a critique, and I think that came from the Camera Club of Richmond. You know, I can't really take credit for that. I think kind of explored to see what kind of ideas there are for virtual programming. And that idea came up, and that seemed to click right away because I'd seen some of the critiques myself in person and then also virtually. And I thought, well, this is a great idea, an opportunity for those that participate to get sort of a one-on-one experience to learn how to further photography techniques, or just to get some kind of feedback or validation for the work that they're doing. So, and it's worked out quite well. I have to say, I've noticed that those that participate gain a lot of great confidence. They share really good photographs, and those that are from the Camera Club of Richmond, their comments are really sharp. I mean, they're real professionals. You can tell that they know their software, their experience with being behind the lens, using the camera technology. So I'm learning along the way too. So I think I've been on every single one thus far. So I don't want to miss one because each one I learn more. And it's something that's not repetitive either. So we've also experienced that some of the participants will go to a second session, a third session, and I'm pretty sure we've had some folks in like 4 sessions. So they obviously are getting value from coming back to each of the different episodes that you have, if you will.
Absolutely. It's been a real win-win-win, I think, for everyone involved. Like you said, your folks are getting that one-on-one experience with some of our folks, but I've seen it take some of our photographers that have done these critiques up, another level, because to be able to look at someone else's work and give them constructive feedback and exchange that information with them, I think has helped us develop as well. So it's been a real great experience. I think the partnership that we've come up with, and again, thanks to our evaluators for stepping up and doing that for us. But it's been really great. Now, I understand that you're developing virtual and in-person programming through your curatorial skills for some upcoming shows. You've got some news for us, I think.
Yes. Yeah, we've got some exhibitions that are coming up for at work, and then also outside of work too. And maybe I can share a little bit of both. So right now for our client, we're putting together Hispanic Heritage Month. So the Cultural Heritage Month celebrations have been really great. And with JLL, I've taken what I've learned over the years working with our client, especially last year with having everything in a virtual environment. We've created some virtual art exhibitions and talks with JLL. So we did the first iteration of that in June for Pride Month, and we had 2 artists, and that was really successful. So I'm hoping to build that further, do more with JLL, because then it opens us up to other collections, other clients that JLL has been working with. And then we've got some museum partnerships. So I'm really excited to work with one of our partners that's in one of the cities. We'll have a virtual exhibition of their work, et cetera. And those are the things on the horizon. So I hope that gives a little bit of idea of what we'll be working on next.
Super. And if some of those are virtual and you're able to share them with us, that would be awesome. Because like you said, I think so many of our members like to see other people's work, and you learn from seeing others' work. So where you can keep us posted on what you're doing and what's going on, we'd love to know about it.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, what do you enjoy most about creating an exhibit?
I think the sort of the innovation in it, curating an exhibition, especially when I'm in person, I like to engage with the work directly. What does each piece represent? What does it do? How does it speak to the artist's message? But then when you put a piece next to another one or have it in a grouping, then they have a dialogue with each other. And that's what I enjoy the most, curating exhibitions in person, is seeing how a piece works next to another piece, taking a look at how you install the piece. So if there's opportunity to be a little bit experimental with how you hang the piece itself on the walls, I love that side of it because I'm kind of experiencing at the same time. And hopefully I'm doing my best to emphasize what the artist's vision is for that particular work is, or what they want the viewer to experience. And that's what I've enjoyed. The virtual exhibitions have been quite different because you don't have a physical space, of course. So it's more of the sequence of the work. I can recall one exhibition that we worked with a photographer, and well, I just mentioned their names. There were two photographers that I met at Photo NOLA 2019, and Rich Frischman does this series of work titled Ghosts of Segregation, and he documents these significant stories of segregation. We focused on Black history, but he covers Asian Americans, Jewish, etc. And the sequence of the photographs, along with the history and the stories, was important to us. And the second artist that I met at Photo NOLA was Janine McNabales. She has this photographs series titled Through Darkness to Light, and she documented the Underground Railroad from Louisiana to Canada. It's really beautiful photographs. I was just taken away from seeing them. I didn't review her work at Photo NOLA. She was in on my list, but I saw her during the gallery. I think it's called the Gallery Walk, and saw this series and just had to meet her and connect with her. And I was lucky enough to be able to work with her for a project with her client. I felt very emotional looking through the history, the artifacts, and the fact that she researched these locations for 10 years and then photographed them for 4 years. Such powerful work. So the sequence of that was really important. And I spent a lot of time with the work, the photographs themselves, looking at them, how I experienced them, and thinking about how the viewer would virtually go from one image to the next. We couldn't show the whole series of all the works, which is, I think it's like 60, 70 plus photos. I had to curate that down to, I think it was just below 20 or 18 photographs. So that was very difficult for me, but I really thought about the history, the objects that you see, the scenery, the landscape. Are they close-up images of the surroundings, like the mud that you have to walk through, the terrain, or is it a location of safety, or is it a location that's more ominous, or is it looking up at the stars and finding your way to true north? So I feel like that was a good example of my approach to how I curate exhibitions. And I also like, as I mentioned earlier, I feel like it's important for the artist's vision for the work come out. My curatorial practice is collaborative. I don't like to say this is my way and this is it. So I like to talk with the artist, see what their preference is, see what their thoughts are on how I've curated an exhibition. So then we talk together. I might see things in their work that they may not have seen. And then I obviously would learn a lot from hearing their words of what they experience. But I feel like most artists, they're very interested in what the curator has to offer. But they, most of the time, have a vision for their work too. So I like it to be sort of an intersection, dialogue between the two.
What a great opportunity, and I love the collaborative approach that you talked about. So great. Now, do you ever exhibit your work? Do you have any upcoming exhibits or shows or contests?
I haven't exhibited my own work for a while, but I am excited. I know that we'll get a chance to take a look at one photograph coming up. So it's related to a ongoing project that I've been contributing to over the years. So in a sense, that is my work too. So once we get there, I'll talk a little bit more.
Well, I think we're there. So let me pull up one of your images and just let you tell us about it.
Sure. So this is a photograph I took at the Reina Sofia in Madrid. This was back in 2008, 2008. And the photograph relates to the Mountain Lake workshop. When I was undergrad and master's student, I went to Virginia Tech, and one of my master professors, Ray Cass, was both my painting professor as an undergrad and my master professor in the arts administration program. He founded and directed what's called the Mountain Lake Symposium and Workshop. It started off as a symposium where he invited a lot of art critics, art historians, Clement Greenberg, and Susie Gablick. Susie ended up living out in southwestern Virginia after a short time when that started. They would come and talk about art, discuss art, and then Ray involved it into workshops. And Ray would invite artists to create work. A lot of folk artists were there. S.L. Jones, James Harold Jennings, Howard Finster created works in response to the flora and fauna that was at Mountain Lake. So a lot of folks would know Mountain Lake Hotel because of Dirty Dancing. That's where it was filmed. So just close to that was the Horton Center, where a lot of these workshops would take place. So it was a participatory experience where students and the general community would come and help the artists create works. So the artists could create more work in volume and then create more ambitious works that they couldn't do with just their two hands. They then have a workshop. That's the premise. And they'd have a chance to be experimental. So one of the artists that Ray worked with was John Cage. He's a musician and a composer, also an artist. And Ray developed a lot of the smoke paper techniques. And Mr. Cage did all of his New River paintings through Mountain Lake Workshop. But one painting that he did, 1989, was entitled Steps. And he took this long brush that the workshop made for him and dipped it into black ink. And then he dipped his feet in the black ink and then drug it across this long sheet of paper. And you could see the footsteps and the marks. And he called it Steps. He said, it doesn't matter who holds the brush, it's the artist that conceives the idea. So Mr. Cage passed away, of course, but what Ray has been doing over the years is connecting with artists that knew Mr. Cage or worked closely with him. We did a Steps painting with Dr. Stephen Addis from the University of Richmond as the first iteration. The second iteration was with the Cunningham Dance Company. So at the time, the dancers were the repertoire dancers, and then they eventually became the dance company themselves. So Merce advanced them. But anyway, in the background, you can see Dancers 1. We did Dancers 1 and 2, and for Dancers 1, the dancers went from one end of the paper to the other side, dragging a different size brush. Some of them were small, some were larger. And then they had their bare feet that were dipped in ink. And Merce would tell them to do particular dance steps or movements or their speed or pace. And then Dancers 2, which isn't pictured here, is they stood around the perimeter of the paper and did dance steps across it. And then they did a wash with the original John Cage brush. And then the final piece we did was with Merce. It was a solo piece. At the time, Merce was in a wheelchair, and we put this large white silk sheet over the dance studio floor, and he did a movement piece. We inked his wheels with black ink and then this very dark blue ink, and then beautiful piece. And then we covered it with the original Cage brush. He wanted to do more pieces with us, but then he passed away about, I think, just about a year afterwards. And then, so the piece is now regarded as Merce Cunningham's last recorded performance of his artistic career. So before he passed away, Merce decided to use them as backdrops for the dance company in the Reina Sofia for the performance there. So the audience would be able to walk in the gallery while the dancers are dancing. So as you see here, this is kind of like the viewer's experience. You'd be very close to the dancers. So this was press night, or I think a few hours before the performance. So I had my little point and shoot, this little cannon, and I was next to all of like these European photographers shooting with their like, professional cameras, and I felt so embarrassed. But after a while, I said, "So what? I'm just going to take shots," and some of them turned out, well. So Ray selected them in the Mountain Lake Workshop Experience book that's published. So it's my first published work, and then the exhibition is on tour, right? And it's about to open at the Asheville Art Museum. I think it's August 19th of this year. So to answer your earlier question, I feel like this is my work. It's not like having my work on display on the wall, but it's my contribution to a larger project, which is within Mountain Lake Workshop.
What a great story. I love, there's more to see. The more you look, the more you see in the work. And then the dancers adding that three-dimensional impact to it. I can see footprints as I'm really looking through that. Awesome. All right. And then you also sent us another photo. I'm going to share again and bring up your other one, which I thought was very intriguing. So I'm going to let you tell us about this one.
So this has some roots with the Mountain Lake Workshop as well. Ray and I were in Paris, France, and we were there to visit Jackie Matisse Monnier. She's the granddaughter of Henri Matisse and the stepdaughter of Marcel Duchamp. And the reason why we were there to meet with her is we did a project with Merce. It was my master's project when I was at Virginia Tech. She makes these kites that she flies in the air. They're 50 foot long, and then she floats them underwater. We recreated them in virtual reality. And Virginia Tech had one of the first virtual reality caves. So that was my sort of thesis project. Jackie had a retrospective exhibition at the Matisse Museum in a city close to Paris. I think it was northeast. And after we came back from visiting the museum where her exhibition was, I had a few days in Paris, and I thought the light was just so amazing. I said to I had a friend who gave me some pointers for getting a camera. So I guess, somehow I got in my head, I want to get a toy camera. So I bought this toy camera. I went out there. The light in Paris was just so beautiful. That day, I walked around Paris as much as I could. So I went through Montmartre Cemetery and then did some of these double exposures. And I really didn't know how they're going to turn out. I had to think about, okay, here's the image I can see in the little window, and then I'm going to move and take another shot. So it's very chance oriented. But I was really pleased with the series of photographs that came out. I thought it was quite fun.
Awesome. Yeah, that's unique. I love it. All right. Now, so we've talked about your images. We are excited that you're going to be coming to our August meeting for the Camera Club of Richmond as our evaluator to look at our images. So tell us how you approach evaluating other people's work.
Evaluating other people's work, I look at the work aesthetically. So what is it presenting to me right away? So I take a look at, is the image balanced? What are the objects in the image? What are the techniques that are used? Is it well portrayed? So I look at it on multiple ends. So my experience, obviously, with photography, I'm still a learner. So more of my comments are aesthetically based. Where does it land in terms of its color, its balance, its structure, its lines, its movement, its gestures? Those are the things that I'm looking for. And if the photographer, if the artist is intending or indicating more with the title, then I take that into account too. So is it something that reveals more if I read into the title or not? So I try to look at it at different layers, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I agree with you on the titling thing, because I think it sets the viewer up to help interpret what the artist was trying to say, whether it's a painting or a photo. All right. Yeah, thank you. We're excited that you'll be there to bring that different perspective to our work. So we can't wait. Now, do you have any of your work online? Is there a place where we can see more of your work?
Uh, Unfortunately, no. I'm trying to think, like, where can we find some of my work? So that's probably the next step I have to do for my own studio work, is to try to see more of it. But, thinking back at the projects that I've done over the years with different groups, mountainlikeworkshop.org has a lot of information on the artists. So those projects that I worked with them, you can certainly find information there. And then the curatorial projects that I've done as well. So Photo Nola, I feel like, was really fantastic. I think they've got some of the images or the artists that I reviewed. Atlanta Photography Group had a recording of the exhibition, and then also artist talk that I did. So I was really excited about that. So a lot of these engagement pieces that I do for reviewing works, those are available. For me to be part of the Camera Club of Richmond, I really appreciate that you've invited and welcomed me to be a part of your community, because I feel like I learn a lot. I enjoy it. I like to see all the work that everybody creates, because it's really sharp. And then the experts that you have that do the critiques are really quite skilled at what they do and knowledgeable. So I feel quite honored that you've asked me to review the work, and I will do the best that I can. But I do want to say I greatly appreciate that you've welcomed me into this group to be a learner and I guess now a contributor too. So thank you, Karen.
Oh, we are thrilled to have you, and thrilled to be able to have participated with your client and meet some of the folks there and see some of their their work too. Excuse me. So thanks for joining us, and thanks for contributing. We're looking forward to seeing you in August, and we'll put this together in our newsletter that will come out on August the 1st. So thanks again, Francis, and we look forward to it. All right. Have a good evening, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, Karen.